okay. So people take a little while. So it's just chatty times. Yeah. So how have you been since I seen you?
Let's see, pretty good. When was it? About a week ago? 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, within the last couple weeks. I think last Tuesday I got back in town.
Yeah.
I think, and
I've
so it's
actually
been like
I've
almost
just
2 weeks.
sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've been pretty busy, kind of with my work schedule, and then very relaxing. Did not see a lot of family this upcoming or this winter break, but yeah, kind of. I was just like, I'm just in the crypto universe, and there's always something new going on to poke around and figure out what's going on and what everyone's getting, what people are upset about today. Nothing too exciting, but I'm actually getting ready to pack up actually in this apartment right now and
Mm-hmm.
move across the country. Going to be in Florida
Nice,
with my fellow Floridians, my fellow
Florida
freedom
man.
enjoyers. Yeah. Um, but Arizona's nice, man. I do
Yeah.
like Scottsdale a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But it'll be good to be back home. Where did you guys go after Sedona?
We went up through Prescott, and
Okay,
this there's
nice.
an interesting town in between there. And let me just check, make sure the live chat, no one's in here yet. Oh, one time's watching. Hi, one time. Yeah, there's a cool little mountain town called Jerome that we passed through. It's a midway point,
Yes,
and
yes,
I don't know if you've ever
yes.
been through, but it's quite a trip.
I have. Yeah, and it's in that beautiful high desert region of
Yeah,
northern Arizona. I really like that that intersection of northern Arizona, southern Utah. You got Sedona,
yeah.
you got Flagstaff, you've got Grand Canyon, you got the Zion National Park, you've got I
Mm-hmm.
think Bryce Canyon's around there, all
Yeah,
beautiful red rock and like decent amount of sun, but it also gets pretty chilly in the winter, right? And a lot of snow, so you get all the seasons as well. Really beautiful area.
yeah.
Glad you
When
got to
I
see it.
I'm kind of more from the southern part of the state. I and like
Hmm.
north of Mexico part, but I did go to undergrad in Cedar City, Utah, which is kind of in
What
that
school's
area.
there?
It was George Wythe University. They're not there anymore, unfortunately.
Got you.
But they were quite good at the time. But anyway, we have two people watching on YouTube. We have a few people on Odysee, and let me just check for Twitter to make sure we're not
Welcome in.
missing. Yeah, so welcome everybody. Welcome to our little.
Welcome, my fellow crypto freaks.
Yeah, of course. Um,
Cheers to that. We're
oh,
all a little
cheers.
different.
I got my little espresso
It's
here.
what
What do you
makes us
got?
special.
Kombucha?
Uh, Cold brew coffee,
Okay, nice.
organic Trader Joe's. Straight black. I'm not a big frills and fancy ornaments adding to my coffee. Just
Yeah.
straight up black or a little cream. Like a
Straight
little
up
splash of cream.
straight up energy for the crazy crypto mind. I know how it goes.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah,
Um,
pseudo Adderall.
and I should um, point out to the person who's not watching this, which is Naomi Brockwell, because she's running her own first stream in a very long time at the exact same time as me. Oh, so
Wow,
rude.
so you guys are competing right now. That is pretty
Yes, which
rude because
means I'm
she
getting
sucks.
crushed because she's
She
got
sucks a
92
lot of
watching.
oxygen. Obviously, yeah, she is.
Yeah.
She's put out excellent content for years, and quite frankly, a little cuter than you, Joel.
Yeah,
But
that's
it is what it is. It is what it
I'm
is.
gonna be I gotta be fine with that comment.
But
Naomi's
seriously, Naomi's put out phenomenal content for years, and has been one of the best content creators in crypto. Not just talking about ways that you could profit from crypto, but also a lot of the
hmm
foundational components, especially privacy. She's been very vocal and
yeah.
articulate on that front. So very much appreciate Naomi. And if anyone watching hasn't heard of her, definitely check out her channel, but not right now. After
Yes, not right now.
after the
When we're
stream,
done,
yeah,
she'll always be there. This is
after
something you can't get anywhere
exactly.
else.
Um,
But hi, Naomi. Uh, anyway, all right. So I think we're probably good to get going. We got enough people in the chat. We got everything going. I'm gonna run the intro graphic thingy real quick, and then we'll just
okay.
jump right into things. Hey everyone, happy not Friday. Usually show is always on Friday except for the last 2 weeks because it's the holiday season. Dun, 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 dun. And it would have been Christmas Eve if it was a Friday, and it would have been New Year's Eve if this was a Friday this time. So, but next month we're doing the same schedule. So happy Thursday, happy holidays slash lazy times, hopefully for some people. I'm joined by the one and only Brett Maverick Musser. How's it going, man?
Pretty excellent. I'm pretty good. How you doing? Thanks for having me, and I'm glad we ended up getting to meet finally in person, kind of
Yeah,
on a
same.
whim. Very kind of random, but I've had many. I'm sure you've had many random experiences like that in crypto that have been very
Yes.
positive from people that you've kind of known, on the periphery. So I'm glad we got to link up and kind of shoot the shit and then continue on here. You weren't able to find anyone more important than me, and I'm glad I could kind of fill that role. You know what I mean? You got to start
Yeah, well, that's
somewhere.
fine. I mean, to be fair, uh, to be perfectly honest, I had quite a few others in my back pocket. You were high on the list
Absolutely.
for people to reach
Oh,
out
thank
to.
you.
In fact,
Appreciate it.
you might have
Appreciate
been
it.
actually the only person I reached out to for this exact podcast
This.
slot.
Okay. Okay.
I might have
All
been
right. Now
like,
I feel a little more special,
you know what?
but
Let
I
me just talk.
understand.
Let me talk to this guy. And
Yeah.
it's so real
I
quick.
have some.
Some
I have some opinions.
yes, plenty of them, and we'll get to those just a second. Everyone, of course, if you're watching, especially if you're new, subscribe, like the video, pumps it up in the numbers. I should draw your attention. If you're on Odyssey, there's, of course, you can leave a hyper chat, right? You can leave a little comment with some credits, some money, and that'll kind of push things up. If you're on YouTube or whatever else, if you go to down here, cointr.ee/slash the desert lakes, that's my Cointree page. You can leave a donation and a message, and then that will pop up actually on the screen here, and I'll read those out. I am paywalling Brett today. I'll throw him some whatever it is, some sats, some duffs, anything for his troubles. But if you want to ask him anything, you got to pay with Piper. So this is how it goes. Of course, if you have a good enough comment in the regular chat that's not that's not paywalled, I'll break my own rules and go through that. But that's just how things work. All right, let's talk about stuff. So, of course, the first one that
Let's
I
do
think
it.
is it's a constant, subject in the space, which is the Bitcoin dominance, the dominance rate, or as Jordan Peterson might say, the dominance hierarchy. But
Hierarchy. The
yeah,
lobsters. Yeah. 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 I
of
got it.
course. So
Yeah.
Bitcoin dominance has fallen under 40%. I think it might be at 40.5% or something right now. I'm not currently watching it, but
Yep.
basically Bitcoin's dominance is is approaching record lows, and it appears the trend line to be down. Now, that's just like it's just a random fact of the space, just a random thing going on there. But a lot of people read a bunch into this, whether it's
Mhm.
oh, the shit coins are pumping, or oh, Bitcoin's dying, it's becoming irrelevant, or oh, it's just because it would be even lower if they counted Hex as good market cap, or like there's just a million different takes on this.
Yep.
I'd love to hear
Absolutely.
yours.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's a good question. So, God, where do I start? I think what we've seen for the entire like crypto history is basically a power law distribution with a
Mm-hmm.
very long tail, and you have a pretty like fat couple of protocols that collect a lot of value. That's never
Mm-hmm.
really changed. What has changed is Bitcoin's dominance, or I guess, yeah, the dominance metrics that people use, which is it's a superficial number, so it's easy to criticize, but it's also good to have these like top line, just like superficial measurements, so you can get a kind of pulse of what's going on.
Yeah, of
So it's not.
course.
I think I'm about to give a maybe like a lawyer non-answer, but I think you
That's
can,
great.
you can give I think that both perspectives have merit in the sense that there is a clear trend, right? That we can see Bitcoin, and I
Mm-hmm.
think we can project that trend forward, as in it'll continue to go down. But that doesn't mean that Bitcoin's social relevance at the same time isn't increasing, nor its market cap. And I think part of it is a function of one. Um, the market caps are not, let's say, they're not all fungible, as in they're not as liquid. I would say Bitcoin's market cap and Ethereum's market cap and other, let's say, crypto blue chips, are more
Yeah.
liquid, dependable, real in the sense. And the farther you get out on that curve, the more those numbers are dubious and fragile, from like one big seller, where you don't have that kind of dynamic in there. But I think we're gonna continue to see that trend of Bitcoin dominance going down, just from the fact that whether people like it or not, everything is going to be tokenized. And I don't,
Hmm.
that's not a value judgment as in like, should we tokenize everything? I don't think we should tokenize everything,
Just
but
reading the room, right? Seeing where it's
God
going.
damn it, we're going to try, right? Like
Yeah.
everything. And I mean everything. And that could be anything from something that's really disgusting to something that's actually, oh, wow, this is actually a huge difference maker. So from that perspective, yes, Bitcoin's dominance will always go down. But that doesn't mean it'll ever necessarily be, let's say, unseated, or that if it is unseated, so to speak, in
Hmm.
market cap by some platform, that there isn't some battle that goes back and forth depending on um, market conditions, right? Because let's say, in the crypto universe, Bitcoin is the most risk off. Besides, let's say,
Hmm.
bracket the stable coins away, Bitcoin's the
Yeah.
most risk off. I think would you agree with that? Right? It's
I
still
think
risk
so.
on from portfolio perspective, but I think it's the most risk off, or we'll at least assume that for this discussion. And there's going to be points in the macro environment where people are going to want crypto exposure, but they're not going to want to go as far out the risk curve. And then there's going to be other times where it's going to be risk on. Animal spirits are going, and maybe some platform like Ethereum or some other platform momentarily, right? Maybe in the next couple of years, actually takes over Bitcoin in some capacity. But that doesn't mean their position in the hierarchy is safe. I don't think it's ever safe, and I think that any project that does think that they're safe puts themselves at risk of actually losing that spot. So to not answer the question, yes and no. Like, it matters, but it's also like Bitcoin's still the king. It has the most entry points for the community. It even has we have a nation state that has instantiated as legal tender. So
Hmm.
no, the Bitcoin dominance going down does not indicate Bitcoin losing steam or power. I think
Yeah.
it's more of the creativity and the unbelievable brain power and risk taking that has happened farther away from Bitcoin.
Yeah. So it seems like um, what your perspective is, which I would probably share as well, is that everything like crypto is taking over the world because everything that's being done is kind of being cryptoified, so to speak. And it's just that as the space diversifies, it's just a natural, like, it'd be silly
Yes.
to say that just one use case is going to encompass like the entire market for long term. And so I definitely
No.
agree with that thing. Now with the discussion where you start getting with like there's a lot of Bitcoin maximalists or just single crypto or some people, and it's not just a well, Bitcoin is great, everything else sucks, but there's a lot of opinion that over time, a lot of these networks and these main protocols they'll trend to a smaller number, and
Yes.
you get a lot of I would say BTC and BSV maximalists in their own different divergent
Yeah.
yet very similar ways saying, again, I'm not talking about the people who have like a dumb kind of a dumb way of thinking about this, but people who have
Hmm.
I guess the smart educated yet still disagreement on this of, well, right now everyone's playing around with stuff just because, but eventually they're all going to coalesce around one chain or a
Hmm.
few chains, and we'll see the dominance thing reverse. Basically, the
Yeah.
market dominance thing over a long period of time will end up reversing. And you don't believe that at all, do you?
I see no evidence of that. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think I'm not in a position to be like, no, that can never happen, because I think Bitcoin is an amazing piece of technology with an amazing community that can the Bitcoin community now isn't the same one, kind of, let's say, even 5-10 years ago. And it'll keep changing into the future. So there might be things that come down the pipeline that actually do reverse that trend that I talk about. I think trends are made to be broken, and that's kind of why a lot of TA or charting doesn't
Mm-hmm.
fucking work. Because like
True.
um, and I think that's what Michael Saylor's big point to. I don't know. This is a side alley. You can keep me kind of focus. But Michael Saylor was bringing this up to his big point, which I agree with a guy. He was on a podcast with Keith McCullough. And Keith McCullough was going on about his model because he's a trader type. Like his model was saying sell, 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 and Saylor was trying to get it through his head that like, yeah, you had all this empirical evidence of how Bitcoin trades, but I just got into the market, and now you just basically had this black swan event that like, fucks up whatever model you think you had. Oh, I got off track there. Where were we talking? Bring me back to where we were talking about. I knew I was going to get off track.
If we're going to coalesce back into a major network or two.
Oh, yeah. I think so. I remember getting, I guess, when I was a little more doughy-eyed and bright-eyed getting in, I think there was a lot more merit to the case that, there would be this coalescing around Bitcoin, because there was this kind of, I just think this maybe spirit of infiniteness that was around, and playfulness around Bitcoin, and it definitely the culture and the protocol ossified, solidified, and I think there's obvious benefits to that, and let's say drawbacks, but let's say whatever the drawbacks were, they provided this incredible opportunity for other projects to iterate kind of infinitely, and I do think. But there's also never been the case, and I can't find a case in world history where we haven't had multiple monies. And it's absolutely true that we've never had, a point in time where there's been infinite monies used, right? But we've always used multiple metals, at least gold and silver, many different, let's say, pieces of paper. Either states sponsoring pieces of paper, or financial institutions sponsoring those pieces of paper, or we've used actual commodities like silks, guns, furs, shells. So we've never had this pure everything just collapses onto one. Now, what is true is that network effects are real. So it's not like you can have, I would say the analogy would be, you can't have an infinite number of social networks, but I think it's been proven in the market that like you can have many. And obviously a lot has been sucked into things like, let's say, Facebook, Google, Twitter, Pinterest, but you're still naming a lot. And there's a lot of like, let's say, micro sub communities, sub social media stuff that are still pretty vibrant. And I think us streaming on the platform that we are now is case in point. Like, for YouTube is a kind of a black hole, but we're still operating on these margins, and we might be on a platform that disintermediates YouTube, or maybe there's some other platform. But
that's a great point right there, because last I checked, Odysee got around 30 million monthly viewers or something like that, monthly visitors to the site. Which is respectable.
I've been on there plenty of times.
Compared to YouTube, it's nothing.
Pretty good. No, absolutely, but that doesn't mean
my Odysee
economics don't work.
Is about neck and neck with my YouTube channel. They're very close. I have promoted Odysee a lot more, but they're pretty much like the same. Like usually around the same number of live viewers, the same number of likes, same number of views. They're very close. Well, so what you're saying is
I think you definitely have a different audience. Like, as in, you're competing with all the people that like put on their thumbnail where they're like, Bitcoin to like 100K, that type of stuff. I don't know if you've seen that. That's what you're competing with, and you're never going to win that. You know what I mean? Where on Odysee is kind of a frontier, and you've kind of been on the frontier for a while. So your audience is definitely more of a frontier type of experience. And I think, like I said, just because Bitcoin is dominant, and I do think there's no reason to believe that it won't be, let's say, dominant going forward relative to any other specific one. But on the long tail, if you add up all the tokenizations, right, and all the financializations that have gone on in these networks, it's the number's going to decline, or in my opinion. And there's nothing, there's everything right like that. Like, what happens when real estate goes on chain in a legitimate way? Well, real estate is the largest asset class in the world, commercial and real estate, or residential together, right? So if you tokenize all that, no one specific, let's say, real estate token will be bigger than Bitcoin, but all of them together are, and and should be, and will be.
So, and that's kind of an interesting point. And it's one thing where the big winner, I guess, there's been tons of winners. Like every bull cycle has a million winners and losers, right? But more winners than losers. But the big long-term gainers, of course, Ethereum, which seems to be, eating up a lot of the space. And
Hmm.
I think it's kind of interesting that first off, people seem to like what you can do with Ethereum more than strictly what you can do with Bitcoin, because with Bitcoin it's like a more limited number of use cases, whereas
Hmm.
Ethereum is like everything's built on it, especially like DeFi and stuff. And
Yep.
also how much of the space is built on Ethereum. So like uh,
How
it's
much?
not
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
Ethereum, it's just like everything else. But then if you on the other side of things, uh, it's pretty much all the major players in the space that aren't Bitcoin are either Ethereum, built on Ethereum, or built as an Ethereum competitor. It seems like it's just
Yep. Yep.
like, and so if you were going to take like digital sound money kind of thing, the Bitcoin side of things, which is mostly Bitcoin, there's not really any other good competitors for that, and compare it with the collective market cap of dApps and DeFi and like Ethereum based stuff and Ethereum competitors. It might be more even, right? Like 50-50 almost.
Okay. Yeah. So
Maybe that's too
yes, but
optimistic. I don't know.
well, I would say on a lot of metrics, Ethereum has absolutely dominated Bitcoin. But
Yeah.
I want to back up on that point, and I think it's uncontroversial that they've done over the last like 2 years, and that
Mm-hmm.
wasn't the case for a long time. There was stuff going on Ethereum, but most of the fees were being paid to the Bitcoin blockchain. Most of the activity was on there. But by the end of 2019, and then all the way until this point, like Ethereum just went exponential on a lot of different metrics. But I'll back up and say that I think Ethereum is something that I changed my mind on, in the
Okay.
sense that when I was first in the space, I was, like first getting in the space, like I was very 100% Bitcoin in terms of like my allocation, or 95%. And then I played around with some things, just looking around. But I was trying to make the most risk off, risk on decision, right? And I think Bitcoin was that like spot for me, at least from a financial point of view. And I think I made out, or I made out well. Ethereum really pissed me off at the DAO fork, or how they handled
Yeah.
it. And I was also still in the frame of judging it like Bitcoin,
Mm-hmm.
and some of the things that were sold about it, or at least when I say sold about it, I think I wasn't close to the fundraising, so it was just secondhand, so that really pissed me off, and kind of like it was just something I'd come back to if there was something good, but it seemed like they had abandoned the ethos of the crypto ecosystem. I think that's sort of true today, but uh,
They've
Ethereum
softened the
by
ethos, I
20,
would say.
yeah, 100%,
Maybe
100%. But I
maybe you could
think
say Solana
I
has abandoned the ethos, but
so
Ethereum's kind of
this is
softened it.
softened. So that's why what I'm saying is I've come around because of, let's just say, utility and things that have been demonstrated to me, and a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the concerns, let's say 4 or 5 years ago, that I think were valid about Ethereum, kind of over the last 2 years. I think a lot of, if you were a critic, you'd have to eat your words, or like you'd have to update it,
Yeah.
because just like there are things about Bitcoin that you could say to criticize it back in the day, or Dash, um, that have been improved since then, right? And then there are no
Mm-hmm.
longer criticisms, or
Of course.
really any of these systems. But Bitcoin, even though Ethereum does all these things, Bitcoin to me is always going to get a higher premium, because we know that Ethereum has kind of softened a lot of these, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
assurances, and they've also shown, um, uh, just like the predilection, or I guess kind of gesturing at, we can kind of change things and be a little more flexible. And they've done that now. Like one of the things that a lot of Bitcoin people don't like, and I think it's a valid concern, is they fiddled with monetary policy at least 4 or 5 times that I know about.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is about every one of them, and I think at least
There's
this
been
is
an
factually true
improvement.
from what I know, they've all been deflationary, right? So
Mm-hmm.
one of the big, let's say this, let's say the historical arguments around sound money is about, and what Satoshi, intimated at when he was talking about this stuff is that you had to trust the central bank not to debase the currency. So that's what most people are talking about when they're saying something is sound money. There is not just this like arbitrary entity or person that can just create more units, right, without some type of consent. Whereas the Ethereum community got consent for a deflationary mechanism. So this is kind of like an odd thing where, yes, you want your money to be as predictable as possible and have, like, I guess, fidelity around that and trustworthiness around that. But at the same time, they didn't increase it. So empirically, they've only been, let's say, the community in Ethereum has been creating, let's say, tokenomics that are with value accretive to holders. So I think Ethereum is going to always, I guess, to wrap this up, it's always going to have to do more, and provide more value to get the same valuation. And I don't know if that resonates with you, but like, Bitcoin has made, let's say, some trade-offs that some people don't like, but in terms of maximum decentralization and maximum, let's say, at least replication of the full history of the blockchain, it doesn't seem, like Bitcoin is the gold standard when it comes to that. So if you're looking for trustlessness as far out as possible, you're going to be going for Bitcoin. Ethereum is going to soften that up. They don't totally abandon it. I reject the point of view that they abandon it completely, but they do soften let's say, those assurances a little bit. And the benefit is more like just a lot more utility on top. I mean, it's just more programmable. Or at least as a user, I know I can do more natively on chain than I can on Bitcoin. Now, I know Bitcoin has some, let's say, projects, either like things like RSK or people have talked about Lightning as a possible layer for these next generation financial. None of that to me is out of the question, as in, like, there's no reason why it can't happen. But as far as today, like, almost all the energy and excitement and brain power is building a lot of stuff on, I should say, not just Ethereum, but EVM powered chains. And like you were saying before, it's not just Ethereum that's doing well, but a lot of the competitors are either like EVM compatible, right? So people can just copy and paste their code, and it's not that easy, but it relatively works like that. And then you have ecosystems like Cosmos or Polkadot who have, let's say, they have chains that are, they're like in Polkadot, there was a chain, I think, that because they have this auction system for, I guess, assigning slots for their architecture. I think Polkadot's planning on having 100 different blockchains and connecting them all. All that type of sci-fi bullshit, right? But it could be something. And I think the parachain that won the first auction was EVM compatible. So
of course,
just like Bitcoin, like, it's not going away, because, like, even if you thought BTC was going to fail, there might have been other, there are these other derivative coins and forks of Bitcoin. If it wasn't Bitcoin that was going to make it, there's going to be one of these interpretations of it. So I think that's a sign of quality. And I think, people have mentioned that before, but the continual forking of the EVM and Bitcoin just add to its dominance.
Yeah, and so that kind of, to wrap up on that subject, because like Bitcoin versus Ethereum and stickiness in the market is kind of a 5-hour topic, I'm sure, if you wanted to go that far.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, so it seems like everyone's the stuff that's built on Ethereum, and there's more Ethereum competitors. Here's my open question, which I'm not necessarily sure about. So the thing about Bitcoin is nothing is built on it, really. I mean, there's forks of the code base for sure, and there's things that are denominated in Bitcoin, like index funds or whatever else. There's, it's kind of like the main trading pair of crypto outside of like Tether, let's just say, or USD or something. So there's some stickiness, but as far as like on a structural level, Bitcoin has no stickiness. It's just people own it, companies own it, people support it, or little stickiness. Now, on the other hand, Ethereum, where everything like DeFi is being built on Ethereum. It's not just DeFi supports Ethereum, it's running on Ethereum. So many things like
Absolutely.
NFTs and stuff are running on Ethereum. So whereas like you can just have a CeFi, a centralized exchange, just support a different token that easily, you can kind of dump Bitcoin, even though the actual monetary properties of it, the actual history of it, the actual everything else is not replaceable. Technologically, it's just like support a different asset. Whereas with Ethereum, you can't just like shut down Uniswap and then do a different thing. Like there's so basically in the future, a giant backbone of the financial system of the future will literally be probably built on Ethereum or something like it, or but probably Ethereum, at least in the short term. Now, does that make, if say Ethereum gets to the number one spot, does that make Ethereum's spot more secure at number one than Bitcoin's because everything's built on it? Or does it make it less sticky because it has to run, whereas Bitcoin doesn't really need to work super well the transactional system, and therefore it's
Yeah.
easier to just say let's build on something other than Ethereum because these fees are insane.
Um, yeah. I mean, I think I share your uncertainty on that, as in I'm gonna, punt on that, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
both of those like point of view is in Ethereum has to do more, but it's also stickier and can do more. Um, Bitcoin doesn't have to do as much. I really don't have a strong opinion on that, right? Like I think I'm wait and see on that because, um, yeah, I think that's a history waiting to be written. But what I kind of envision um, is this almost brotherly back and forth that Bitcoin and Ethereum have. And obviously, it
Mm-hmm.
gets heated between not the protocols themselves, right? The
The
protocols are not
maxis,
conscious of it. The
maxis on
maxis
both
of the different
sides.
groups. But if you exactly like for me, I've never seen them as totally separate because one, Bitcoin is like I said, it's the king. And
Mm-hmm.
it is the reason for the season, so to speak. Whatever alt season is, Bitcoin is the reason for it. And Ethereum to me is a Bitcoin project. Vitalik was a writer for Bitcoin Magazine. He's an early kind of user, knowledgeable person. Gavin as well. Is it Gavin York? Was that Wood or Gavin Wood? Yeah, I think it's Gavin
Mm-hmm.
Wood for Polkadot. But
Yeah.
what is it called? Uh,
Well, anyway,
I lost my
it's all
spot.
yeah. So, um, I mean, that's probably enough on the subject. Enough. It was, again, a
Yeah.
million hours on this thing. But on the DeFi subject, right? We can go to the next one, which is on CeFi, right? CoinOne will stop withdrawals to unverified external wallets. So essentially, CoinOne, which is a big exchange from South Korea, is now halting withdrawals to basically non KYC external wallets. So
Yep.
basically, that means if you did not give your identification, or if you cannot otherwise prove that the funds on your CoinOne account are yours, they kind of keep them. Like, you lose your
Yeah. Yeah.
freaking money. And that's kind of where we're at today. And that is a very, I guess, a very chilling thing that's happened a few different times and increasingly going on. Uh,
Yeah.
I'm definitely
I
going to
can.
say this is probably going to, I think centralized exchanges are almost gone as far as crypto to crypto. I think that centralized exchanges are going to just be fiat on ramps in the future,
Well,
in the
what's
nearish
the
future. But go ahead.
well? Yeah. What's the timeline on that? So I think I agree, but I
Hmm.
do think that's kind of a long way away.
um,
That's
by
what
a long way,
I
May.
agree. That's the ultimate end state. But how? Like I'm thinking you're more correct, in 5 to 10 years than you are in the next couple years.
Yeah. Um,
I think
I
they're going to
think
be
that
they're still going to be very relevant for a long time because
yes.
maybe not on swaps though. I think they're going to yeah. There's like I have faith in things like Coinbase being able to navigate from let's just say what they started off as and what they're going to be.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I can see them transforming in a lot of different ways. And I think you might be right that the crypto to crypto swaps, we're going to have enough, let's say, native on-chain infrastructure for that, and let's say self-custodial services and peer-to-peer markets that I think hopefully a lot of the revenue from their crypto swaps gets eaten up, and they have to move on to higher value added services, which I think they will do. But so I agree with you. Just not. I don't see it happening in the next like 4 years. I think they're still going to be a massive part of the industry.
Yeah, definitely. So I kind of thought that when I saw DeFi come around, I kind of thought it'd be farther out than I kind of do today. So I definitely, 5 to 10 years before this whole thing, before basically centralized exchanges are how no one trades their cryptos, just fiat on ramps. But
Yeah,
I think in the next, literally the next 2 years, like by the time we have the next bull market, most of the action is going to be on DeFi. I just that's my
absolutely.
That's my
That's
gut
not.
feeling.
I 100% agree with you. 100% agree with
You
you.
know, it's another
It's
data
not even
point
going to be close. It's not
that
even
I
going to be
didn't
close.
understand until I guess recently, like last few months, which means I'm a dummy and I'm slow to this kind of stuff. But I like Binance Smart Chain. I never got. I was just like, what is this? Someone has their own token
Yeah,
and stuff.
yeah.
Now I get it. Binance is just
Okay.
moving it on DeFi. Like they're just ahead of the curve. They just said, you know what? Our business model as Binance is about to be extinct. And maybe not, maybe a few years off, but CZ is a very smart man, and he's just like, you know what? I'm gonna migrate all my stuff that I can onto this like barely DeFi thing. And
Yeah, yeah.
there we go.
Yeah, yeah. I think the most, let's say, successful capitalists are either one, they build like a massive moat or wall around whatever it is that they're doing, right, and get some type of monopoly profits for a certain amount of time, or they're in the mindset of like they're looking to critique or disrupt some system, or
Mm-hmm.
and then as soon as they become part of the system, they're looking to, because they know there's other predators out them like them, that are
Mm-hmm.
looking to disrupt them, so they get ahead of the curve and right the proverbial disrupt yourself kind of thing. And I think what's smart about it is not necessarily that Binance Smart Chain is going to be the end all be all, but you're at least gonna learn a shit ton,
Mm-hmm.
and with a chance for like just maximum upside, right? Because you have to roll when you have to roll your own blockchain and create your own developer ecosystem and stuff like that. I'm sure like Binance and the team around there developed all types of, let's say, insight skills on blockchains, how they work, their deficiencies, what can be optimized, what can't be. And then you can like, not only could Binance Smart Chain be something special, I don't know if it ever will,
Mm-hmm.
but you're just gaining, let's just say, very, 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 very good hands-on experience and knowledge that allows you to, I think, allows them to make allocations across the space, not just in Binance Smart Chain. They can
Mm-hmm.
kind of see through a lot of the bullshit and allocate capital effectively, because there's a lot of opportunities, but there's so much, there's also so much junk in there. So having very hands-on knowledge and having a hands-on team and even having your own platform, if that works out, amazing. If it doesn't, well, you tried and you learned a lot, and you might have been able to, let's say, surf on the next wave within crypto, which the waves are traumatic for anyone that's worked in the industry, in the sense that like they come from all different directions at all different times. You don't know what they are, but you just know that there's going to be changes, new projects, new ways of talking about new words, all types of stuff. So kudos to them. I've never really used Binance Smart Chain, but they are able to bootstrap an ecosystem like that, and kind of, I'd say awkwardly incorporate into Binance, but I think it'll get better and better over time. And whoever's been bullish on BNB, I mean, they made out, right? So
Yeah, I mean, this is another thing that's interesting to point out. So, cryptofees.info, right? It's a great site.
yes,
Great stuff.
yes.
Number one on crypto fees by just a giant margin is, of course, Ethereum. The 1 day
Yep.
fees, let's just take the 1 day fees because whatever. It's today, right? Today, the 1 day fees, 46 million in 1 day fees on Ethereum, right?
Yeah.
A lot of
Yeah.
money. Number 2 is Binance Smart Chain at
Yep.
2.8 million.
It's very real. It's very
And
real.
then third,
Well,
and you skip over like the couple of the protocols, that are, the exchange, the
yeah, yeah,
dexes, and
like
go to the next
Uniswap and
chain
stuff like that.
is Bitcoin at 767,000. So
Yep.
Binance Smart Chain is several times generating larger fees than Bitcoin right now. More, I guess, money behind the usage thereof as far as transactions are concerned, right? And
Yep.
I mean, we'll just save the commentary on Bitcoin because Bitcoin is a lot of what people use it for is literally not moving it. But compared to Ethereum, that's like it's not 10. It's not 10%,
Orders
but
of
it's like
orders of
five
magnitude.
percent, 6, 7%, and the next biggest competitor is Avalanche, which is like 12% of Binance's. And so now,
Well, yeah.
yeah,
Well, I think that highlights my point of like, oh, well, why is Bitcoin trading at that premium? And it's because, I mean, one, there's
hmm
just more familiarity with it.
yeah,
So familiarity is good. I think also you just can't compete with the origin story. And then
yeah, of
there are
course.
more identifiable centers of power, especially for, um, yeah, other things where the centers of power in Bitcoin are a little more opaque, right? It's hard
hmm
to like, as an outsider, look in where something like Ethereum has a little more, and then Binance Smart Chain has a lot more. So, um, they've made a lot of trade-offs to let's say boost that functionality now, and people are using it. But fundamentally, like especially for Binance Smart Chain, you're putting a lot of faith into
Yeah,
some very very
CZ.
concentrated centers of power, right, to get that extra expressiveness, functionality, performance, et cetera, where Bitcoin is really like, it's definitely closer to like your uh, trusting math and economic incentives more than like specific power centers, where, they're just much more identifiable in Binance Smart Chain, less so in Ethereum's case, but more so than in Bitcoin, where there are these like, let's say more identifiable clicks and let's say a proclivity to tinker and change. So from a monetary perspective, people that are looking for a store of value, even if you make it deflationary, it's just like, just don't touch my money, right? Like we don't want any
hmm
updates or anything like that. And I think that's you know, Bitcoin really instantiate a very, they, uh, they carved themselves a corner of conservatism. And I think that really helped Bitcoin focus, and it allows others to kind of fill the gap in a way. We had something conservative that we could all really depend on, right? And even if
hmm
they went overboard, um, that overboardness might have been necessary to kind of get people overboard. And I'd also say, I think this is another point, like um, Bitcoin to me has always been like and I don't even know if this is true, but the old story of like the Bering Strait, where
hmm
the you know, our ancient elders came over through that land bridge to
hmm
another continent, right? And at the time, they didn't have. So we all know, or I should say, we should know that moving by water is much, or air is much faster than going over a land bridge, walking,
Yeah.
right? But they didn't have that technology at that time, right? So they had to use what they had, and they didn't know how to get there. So maybe this other side is DeFi, and freedom or whatnot. But Bitcoin is the biggest bridge. It's the most trusted bridge, and everyone knows pretty much like it's not gonna falter. And I think
Yeah, it's going to be
that
around at
that's like
least.
that psychological that psychological it's like a psychological anesthetic. You just feel better, and that's part of finance, is like not feeling bad about your position, feeling
Yeah.
comfortable in it.
Well,
So,
let's
and then
zoom in on the
Ethereum's a lot. It's just a lot to handle. Like, Bitcoin might be, let's say, weed or LSD, and like Ethereum's like ayahuasca, right? It's a lot.
yeah.
So people have to first get over that one bridge, which is really
hmm
hard. I mean, you see how people react to crypto,
Of
and
course.
you've seen it all. I mean, it's very like it's like Bitcoin hurt their family or something. The way people react, like someone sexually assaulted them in the Bitcoin community or something. That's how people or even crypto. That's how
Hmm.
people react to like the suggestion that it could be a good idea. Um,
So
so
comparing
yeah. Anyways,
Ethereum and Binance though is the interesting part, because when you look at the 7-day fees, Binance
yeah,
is close to 10% of Ethereum's fees. Now, I think that Ethereum's well over 10 times as expensive as Binance, or
yeah.
somewhere close. I'm not too far off. So, judging by that, basically the two, as far as raw transactions, are being probably used almost a similar amount. Like Binance Smart Chain is almost at Ethereum levels of just usage, although people tend, be based on the fees obviously, tend to value doing the same amount of same business on Ethereum more. But we're already starting to become
Yes.
very competitive with just one Ethereum competitor. And so, like, what happens when, let's just say, buy a smart chain? Let's just assume it's going to be that one, although that's a weird assumption. But let's just say it gets to half of Ethereum's fees with
Hey,
clearly
weirder
a
things
lot
have
more
happened in crypto,
usage.
right?
Yeah, and then at that point, it's just like, okay, is Ethereum going to be the new financial system quickly enough to avoid being supplanted on the scramble to the top? And I mean,
Yeah.
I don't
So
know
this is
if
Mike.
that's, yeah, I'm not as confident on
Yeah.
that.
Um, you're right. But I do not think let's say the performance is fungible, 1 to 1. But kudos to them. You're right. Like they have been um, producing successful applications.
Hmm.
I would say, just like a lot of Bitcoin's copycats, they're forks, and in the applications on Binance. And if someone has, let's say, an example that they can prove me wrong, but from what I know, a lot of the, let's say, innovative applications um, oftentimes are coded and released on the Ethereum EVM, and a lot of that stuff is copied and forked, copy paste. Um, and like I don't see, so a good example would be like the sophistication of something like Uniswap and its iterations over time from Uniswap v1 to v2 v3. I don't see those type of, and for people that do know like the progression of Uniswap and how it
Hmm.
works, it's just a very let's just say the Uniswap labs team is a very, very capable engineering team.
Hmm.
um, that knows how to optimize financial markets and optimize let's just blockchain
Hmm.
use. um, I don't see those type of saying, and I think there are other examples like that in Ethereum. So I think it really comes down to like creativity and brain power and who's got the developers.
Yeah, of
Now
course.
there's nothing in what I said. There's no law of nature that says that can't switch, you know, right? Like, so that's what I'm saying. None of these, I don't think any blockchain ecosystem should just like rest on its laurels,
Yeah,
as
no
in
one's safe.
everything. Yeah, exactly. It's like, I mean, it's really hyper capitalism. Every little area of economic activity that you can't cover, someone's going to try to cover it.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's good, right? And you don't have to, there's no reason Ethereum has to chase all of that or get mad that Binance Smart Chain is doing whatever. It's actually a great compliment. And they're a lot of the apps on there are just they're Ethereum copycats. Nothing wrong with that. Copy paste is one of the best inventions ever. Um,
Hmm.
but it's not, to me. It's not something that like until I see otherwise has a chance to let's say out develop, out engineer, and yeah, Ethereum is definitely Manhattan. As in, I think you get stronger assurances over some of your past transactions than you would over Binance Smart Chain.
Hmm.
Now that maybe that changed in the last, I don't know, couple of weeks, but I don't think it has.
Yeah.
So that would be my take on it. Like I think it's a human talent question, and I've seen
Hmm.
just like I saw early days of Bitcoin, you could see this like convergence of let's say software developer talent, let's say like libertarian political awareness
Hmm.
talent, and let's say financial talent, and you get some of the same stuff. Um, yeah, getting pulled into Ethereum too, and I think they have the lead on that. But like, I would never be like, oh, Ethereum developers are all amazing, and BSC developers, they just can't like light a, they can't compete. I don't know that. From what I've seen, I haven't seen some of the more innovative like apps. And
Yeah.
if I'm wrong, and yeah, please, anyone, I'm always down to check out. I think there's, there's interesting people in almost every ecosystem.
All right. Well, this is probably a good time to wrap it up, huh? Let's
Sure.
shill things.
Okay.
What do you got to shill for me?
Well,
What
I
are you
got
working on? What do you want to? Where can people follow you? All that kind of good stuff.
yeah. So shill warning. So I'm a contributor on a project called X Token, and the simplest way to describe X Token is I'd say DeFi product studio and creative studio, as in we're creating next generation financial products, and
Mm-hmm.
specifically what those are at least for the last are tokenized strategies on Ethereum. So, and tokenized strategies have come in two forms. One are staking. So, a specific example would be staking Aave.
Mm-hmm.
And the engineering team would basically create a wrapped version of the staking process
Mm-hmm.
that has a lot of different benefits, which I won't go into. And then we also have tokenized liquidity strategies, which are basically um, ERC20s that represent a certain position in a Uniswap V3 pool. And what's interesting about V3 compared to
Yeah.
V2, and I don't know, Joel, how familiar with it you are or your audience, but
Mm-hmm.
basically the difference is when you in V2, if you were providing liquidity to a pool, you could be lazy.
Yeah.
V3, you have to make a decision.
Okay.
So, and the decision it has financial consequences, both good and bad. So before in V2,
Mm-hmm.
you just put in your liquidity, and basically what happens is, and I guess this is done
Yeah.
theoretically or mathematically, your liquidity is spread across the entire price curve, which is
Mm-hmm.
very inefficient, right? Because not hardly any asset pairs trade from zero to infinity, right? They usually come within some range.
Mm-hmm.
V3 has liquidity providers pick their price range. So you're going to be like, okay, I think DAI ETH is going to stay in this range,
Yeah.
and I'm going to provide liquidity for that range. So as soon as the price moves out of that range, you're not earning any fees. When it is
Cool.
in that range, you're earning a lot of money. So we build on, so that basically opens up the design space for let's say protocols like ours that create financial assets to basically create these tokenized strategies that represent an LP position in a Uniswap V3 pool. And what we also are changing the formatting on it, because another difference, and this is like, I guess, a standardization thing or a data format thing, I don't even know how to describe it, but
Mm-hmm.
basically before, when you were a lazy LP in Uniswap V2, you had every LP's position was fungible, right? Everyone was equal with everyone else. Everyone was on the same price curve. With Uniswap V3, it's a non-fungible position. So
Yeah.
you basically, we're turning an NFT into an ERC20, and that has some ancillary benefits to that. So the long story short is XTK is a development studio that creates either financial products for protocols to access DeFi capital markets, and users that are looking for, let's say, tokenized yield, even some
Mm-hmm.
lending, or even leverage strategies. So that's another strategy that we offer, where you could go 2x, 3x long
Mm-hmm.
Ethereum. So
So what's the
I think
site?
there's a lot of different. What happened?
Sorry. So what's the website for that?
Xtoken.market.
Xtoken.market, and that's
Yes,
just
and
X token dot
yeah,
market.
and then our ticker symbol is XTK.
Mm-hmm.
I my personal position on there is protocol analyst. So something that we've
Mm-hmm.
been doing um, we're very engaged in, and I'm very engaged in different protocols governance within DeFi.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what's going on in the background, if people aren't aware, almost every protocol, just like Dash has an improvement proposal system, and
Mm-hmm.
Bitcoin, almost every one of these projects has a improvement proposal system. users or interested parties are going to offer, some type of plan and something that they want to do to improve to improve the protocol.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. On something like Aave, I would be someone, and maybe someone else from my team. We're going to review those AIPs, and then we're going to either vote yes or no, depending on our point of view on that protocol, given our, let's say, protocol mandate around what we've basically communicated to our users. So, and then I handle a lot of internal, external comms, answering any questions that people have, and partnering
Yeah.
with other protocols. But yeah, XDK is a project, microcap, and we're kind of deep in DeFi. We're building on top of other dApps. Right? There's kind of like 3 layers there, where you have Ethereum as underlying layer. You have these other, let's say, applications on top, like Uniswap, and then we're building on top of Uniswap. And there's a lot of other professional market makers like us that basically, I think the big takeaway from this stuff is that anyone with a Ethereum wallet and an internet connection can get access to pretty complex financial instruments, where, in the traditional world, to even create these assets, you probably have had to gone to Wharton or some type of, let's say, Ivy League feeder school.
Yeah.
And then you'd have to get hired by some type of institution that is chartered by some other, let's say, government institution. And then they could only really sell these products to accredited investors, wealthy individuals, right? Because the plebs are not intelligent enough to make their own kind of investment decisions. So applications like Xtoken and, and we're using Uniswap heavily, get you access to yield that you can't get in the traditional financial system. And we allow anyone to really access these DeFi capital markets, which are pretty insane. And there are, let's just say, a whole range of strategies, from very risk-off stablecoin LPs, where you can get consistent, good yield, which is hard. It's impossible to find in traditional finance, and everything. And then you can also go, 3x long, leverage long ETH. So we're kind of covering the risk spectrum there, and, iterating as fast as possible.
So where could people follow you specifically? Like Twitter?
Yeah. So
Let's just say,
yeah,
drop
Twitter,
your Twitter and let's wrap that up there.
My Twitter is @Brett Maverick. So BRETTMAVERICK, and then _ And then I'm also in the Xtoken Discord. So if you have any questions about Xtoken, I can answer it in the Twitter DMs or even on Discord. So yeah, hit me up. And thanks for having me, Joel. I appreciate it.
Well, fantastic. Well, everyone, like, comment, share, subscribe. If you're watching the other podcast for the first time ever, it's not the same link in Odysee. You have to go out and open the actual other link that I have, because they actually did scheduled streamings for the first time this week. So that's awesome. So yeah, everyone follow Brett. He's a cool dude. Chat with him, all that stuff. Harass him on Twitter. Don't call him names though. And yeah, everyone else, I'll see you either in 5 minutes or so for the next podcast, or I'll see you next week. Bye everyone. Have a good one. Have a good new year.